So let's take the slightest of steps back before everybody says what I know that they're bound to say. Yes, technically, this film leans a little towards the comedy side, heavier so than the horror side. A lot heavier, if we're being honest with each other. But Jesus, did this movie just radiate with every quirk, every vibe, every staple of 80s culture that just drew you in. But here we are, 40 years later, and I gotta ask, does 1985's Once Bitten still have teeth to it? Let's talk about that right now. As mentioned, the opening of this movie with the colors, the font, it was prime for its time. It's all 80s, bouncy, fun. We see a butler here preparing what looks to be breakfast in bed that consists of a V8, I guess, until we see this tray taken to a coffin and realize that's not V8 in that cup. That's when we get our first glimpse of Lauren Hutton, and wow, stunning. This is the first time I'd ever seen her before, and it took my father explaining to me in his creepy way that she was a supermodel. He said more than that, but the gist was she was a supermodel for the time, and she looks the part here. Now, she plays the Countess, and the gentleman bringing her breakfast in the casket is her butler slash aide slash life mate, Sebastian. And these two are fun the whole way through. Wherever she goes, he's right there by her side, helping with makeup, picking out clothes, keeping all of the other vampires that she has living with her, vampires she's turned over the years. He keeps them in line. And one of the strengths of this movie here is the relationships amongst these characters across the board. The relationships are the key to this movie because the interactions with certain groups, they feel believable. It feels real. It feels genuine, and it shines through. The story here is the Countess has been alive for something like 400 years, and she looks great for her age. But in order to stay young and beautiful, she has to drain the blood of a virgin 3 times, all before Halloween. Otherwise, she withers up into a prune and she fades away. So, right off the bat, any film, for me, that figures Halloween into their primary plot, it's got a special place in my heart. And with Lauren Hutton, here's the Countess, on the prowl for just the purest of boys, you have to wonder, just who will this lucky virgin be? Enter Jim Carrey. Now, this is Jim Carrey before Ace Ventura, before Dumb and Dumber, before The Mask, Liar Liar, the movies that he would go on to become famous with. This happened all before that. And then, of course, after those movies, he went and lost his mind. But here he's really good. He plays Mark, and Mark is desperately trying to take his relationship with the wholesome and just beautiful Robin to the next level. And they're parked in his ice cream truck that Mark is employed with. This is how he makes a living. He goes from town to town selling ice cream bars, which there's worse ways to make a living. But they're parked in the ice cream truck, and Mark is trying to round home. He has been unsuccessful up until this point in the relationship, and he's unsuccessful here tonight because Robin is just not sure about it yet. She's a teenage girl, and teenage girls have a lot of pressure on them, and I think it's even more so now than the 80s. I guess that's debatable, but he ultimately gets shut down, steps out of the truck in frustration, and it doesn't do him any favors that everybody and all the cars around him just so happen to be banging. Everywhere you look, there's a car bouncing up and down. You see a bare ass. It's a little much for Mark to take in at that moment. So with this scene, it's as good as time as any to mention the Friday the 13th alumni that we get in this movie. I recognized them right away. Playing members of the Countess's vampire clan are Stuart Carno from Part 2. You know him as Ted, the one who survived at the bar when Paul and Jenny go back to the camp. You've also got Carrie Moore, who happens to be one of the twins from Friday the 13th Part 4. And we're not really going to talk about the guy that appeared from Part 5 here, primarily because it came out some years later that he was responsible for being inappropriate with an underage Corey Haim, and he's possibly responsible for how messed up Corey Haim became in his younger years, and it just makes my skin crawl. Seeing him in this movie made my skin crawl. But it was nice seeing the other faces from Friday the 13th, even if they didn't even warrant proper character names in this movie. On top of all that, the theme song of this movie is killer. It's catchy, it's fun, it's very, very 80s vibe. Look it up, it's a lot of fun. So Mark strikes out, night's a bust. He's watching all these other people, all these other couples in these other cars, treating each other like amusement park rides, and then we wind up meeting Mark's buddies. Now they're suffering similar fates when it comes to their luck with ladies. And then they decide that they're all going to get together. This is Mark, his friend Russ, and his friend Jamie. They're all going to get together and they're going to go to Hollywood to one of the bars to try to drop that V card that's been haunting them all these years. And they figure Hollywood's as good a place as any because you're going to meet some colorful characters out there and maybe some women who are a little less inhibited. In the meantime, Sebastian has tasked the crew of vampires living with the Countess to go out there and find him a suitable virgin to present to the Countess so she can get her blood transfusions and they can all be safe moving forward because they're all tethered together. And when this group of vampires out there in Hollywood sees an ice cream truck with a couple of dudes driving around in it, they figure it's as good a place to start as any. One of the many things that works well for this movie is the abundance of fun scenes and very clever and creative set pieces, which is exactly what we get when the three boys stumble into the Phone-A-Date Club and some hijinks ensues. Now, this club, you essentially sit down at a table. It's got sort of a telescopic lamp that comes up from the center of the table with a number lit up at the top of it, and at each table is a phone shaped like a pair of lips, which was all the rage back in the 80s. And you pick up the phone and you call the people at the table that you want to have a conversation with. It's all very clever, and it makes for some fun parts of this film. For example, Russ decides he's going to break the ice and he calls a table which has a woman that he would like to have a conversation with. Calls her up, he goes over, he gets an invitation to go over and join her at the table, finds out it's an overly aggressive man that just so happens to be dressed like a woman, so it doesn't quite go as Russ had hoped. That's when the Countess calls Mark's table and invites him to the bar. He goes up there, meets Lauren Hutton. He's smitten. He's trying to talk to her, fumbling over his words. She sits there amused, looking amazing as always. And she knows this is exactly who I need. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Then Russ and Jamie wind up getting a call as well. They go over and talk to a pair of ladies at a table, only to find out one of the ladies has a husband who shows up very irate, very vocal about his displeasure with the situation before he pulls a gun out and decides to shoot up the bar. Really, really funny stuff. Now, the Countess sees this as an opportunity to whisk Mark away into a car with Sebastian before heading off to their mansion. Now, they assure Mark that the ice cream truck's going to be taken care of. She makes her intentions clear when they're at the house by coming out wearing next to nothing. Mark, nervous as ever, is rambling. Jim Carrey is really, really good here. And she begins kissing him, and it's getting hot and heavy, all before she bites the buttons off of his shirt. Now, keep that part in mind, because the button thing plays a role all throughout the course of the film. It's actually really funny stuff. She moves her way down south, and then, ouch, and he passes out. Wakes up, he's shown the door. After a little bit of conversation, he's convinced he's no longer a virgin. It's finally happened for him. He has enough presence of mind, though, to let the Countess know, hey, this has to just be a one-time thing. I have a girlfriend that I love. This was just this. This was tonight and nothing more. The Countess smiles and laughs and complies, but hears none of what he's saying. She has her hooks in. She has her first of 3 tastes of this guy, and she is going to see this through to the very end. Mark is hers from this point on. So we move on to high school the very next day, and I couldn't help but notice that they used the same school for this movie that they used in Karate Kid, that they used in Just One of the Guys. And I also believe that it was the one from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 as well, the exact same high school. And I love Easter eggs like that. I like being able to see those things in movies. But here, the change in Mark is starting to set in right away. Earlier in the film, he had had a burger that was clearly well done, and he wanted it burnt even further. So that's how he likes his meat. And now he's ordering raw burgers, essentially, from the lunch line as he's going to his table to talk to Russ and Jamie. He's wearing sunglasses. He's doing his hair differently. He's sleeping in a trunk at home. All of these things are happening to him after that first encounter with this woman. It's at that lunch table that Robin overhears Mark's friends trying to pry details out of him about this supposed sexual conquest he had just the night prior. Now, she has a great line here when Mark is trying to explain his way out of trouble when she says she can't believe that Mark would throw their relationship away for a butler and a chauffeur and a slut that eats buttons. Very funny. I popped when I heard that. I remembered that line, but I hadn't heard it in so long, and upon rewatch, I just laughed. It was really well done, delivered perfectly. Ultimately, though, she winds up forgiving him because we need that cat fight that we're barreling towards at this point in the movie. Now, this can't be an 80s film without a closed montage of some point, and Mark and Robin, after the reconciliation, Mark is visiting Robin at work, and she works at a department store. Mark visiting her is just adorable. They're a cute couple. They work well together. I thought they had really good chemistry. And he goes to try on some pants, but when he gets in the dressing room, the Countess is already in there. The fact that the Countess is in there seducing him, and he's fighting against her verbally to try to get out of the situation with Robin on the other side of the door, I thought was pretty bold. I thought it gave for some good dialogue. And then there's more biting that takes place, and just like that, second transfusion, Countess leaves happy, one more to go before Halloween, and she's in the clear, and Mark is forever hers, as he will be added to the crew of vampires that she keeps in tow. And another really great scene that's completely worth watching all by itself is the Halloween hop or the Halloween dance or whatever they call it at the school, because the cat fight that we were promised, first off, they're supposed to go as Jack and Jill, okay? And then Mark decides he's not going to wear a costume, so he just comes all black, hair slicked back, and everybody assumes he's a vampire, to which he takes real umbrage with. He's not a fan of that. But they look great together, Mark and Robin in their costumes, and we get the cat fight that we were planning on seeing. We wind up getting a dance battle between the two instead, to a bouncy tune with the fate of Mark hanging in the balance. And if you never see this movie, I would really recommend that you look up the scene, because I guarantee it's gonna make you smile. It's really fun. And maybe you don't want fun with your horror, and it's more comedy than it is horror. Let's be real here, okay? I love horror. This channel is based on 80s horror, but sometimes you have to branch out. You broaden your horizons a little bit. It's okay to laugh, because there's so much going on in the world where you just can't laugh anymore. That's just the way we're structured right now. But this movie, this goofy little horror comedy, it just has a little bit of everything in it that will really entertain you for 90 minutes or so. The different vampires from the different eras was great. Their unique caskets that they sleep in, I thought was a really good touch. Sebastian as their overseer was perfect. He was really good in this movie. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know if I've ever seen that gentleman in a movie before. If I did, I didn't notice him. But I thought he was really good here. Over the course of the film, Jim Carrey's character of Mark has several fever dreams, one of which he's basically Dracula and he's about to bite Robin at the request of the Countess. And he looks like Dracula. I mean, he does a really good job. He could play a vampire perfectly. And he does a really good job here. His sidekicks are fun. Russ and Jamie give you some questionable humor that I don't know that you could get away with nowadays, kind of what we talked about earlier. But it was fun for the time, it fit for the time, and it was pretty funny. Robin is adorable almost all of the time, and when she's not adorable, it's just because she's being ferocious and territorial, and that's exactly what she needs to be in those moments.
Mark doesn't want you because you're mean and evil. He wants me because I'm nice and sweet and pure. So fuck off!
Finally, last but not least, Lauren Hutton is stunning in this movie, and she feels like she was meant to play this role of a vampire / cougar out there looking for young blood to sustain her for a couple of more centuries. She's sure of herself, she's focused, and you almost root for her to win at several points in the movie. But of course, Mark is the real winner because he has two beauties vying for his attention, and what more could you want as a young man? This movie is a ton of fun. It's one of my favorites. It was one of my favorites back then. I watched it again for this purpose, and I had fun with it all over again. I'm going to watch it with my son now that I've done my review, because I love introducing him to some of the movies from my time. This is a 7.5 out of 10 for me. I think this ages gracefully. Some people aren't going to like it, and that's okay. You know, we can have different tastes. There are horror elements, but it's not a scary movie in any form or fashion. It's just a movie that you can sit down with and you can just enjoy. So Once Bitten is streaming on Tubi right now. So if you've got a little bit of time, feel free to give it a look. If you do, you won't regret it. If you do regret it, you can yell at me. Trust me, it happens to me every day. What's one more angry voice? This is Aging Gracefully. I am Matthew Essex. Thank you for sitting in with me on this one. If you like what we do, think about subscribing. Come and see us every once in a while. We try to have some fun with some older movies. We try to look at some newer movies when the occasion comes up. We being my son and I, just watched The Predator Killer of Killers. Fantastic film. Maybe we'll talk about it. Maybe we won't. But until next time, thank you, and I will see you on the other side.